Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to begin our Build-A-Deck series around the pair of commanders that were declared champions of MTG Burgeoning's Tournament of Partners. What's up, MTG-BC? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. We are here because of you. Your votes, your comments led to this Build-A-Deck series around the pair of commanders that you chose as your first Tournament of Partners champions. Let's review who were crowned the champions. We have ELIGETH'S Crossroads Augur, a 5/6 Flying Sphinx for 4 and 2 blue mana. If we were to scry any number of cards, we draw that many cards instead. And paired with ELIGETH'S Crossroads Augur is Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, a 3/1 human rogue for 3 and a blue mana. We may have Sakashima ETB as a copy of another creature we control, except it has Sakashima's other abilities. The legend rule does not apply to permanents we control. This was the winning pair of commanders that the MTG-BC decided to crown champions of the Tournament of Partners. So thus begins our Build-A-Deck series. Mono blue commanders, one that is specializing in turning scry into draw, and one that allows us to skirt around the legend rule. What we're going to do with this deck is we are going to implement as best we can both abilities of these commanders. We are going to begin this Build-A-Deck series with a fairly large package of scry spells that we hope to turn into ridiculously undervalued but overly powerful and overly resourceful draw spells. Let's begin with Chain to Memory. Instant for a blue mana, target creature gets -4/-0 until end of turn. That's not really EDH playable. However, with ELIGETH in play, instant speed, 1 blue mana to draw 2 cards. Wow, that's just aces in our book. Card 1 of our scry package is Chain to Memory. Card number 2, Mystic Speculation. Sorcery speed, 1 blue mana, scry 3. But again, in the presence of ELIGETH, we're going to draw 3 cards instead. And if we have the additional mana, we can buy back Mystic Speculation for 2 generic mana. Spell number 3, we have Opt. Instant speed, 1 blue mana, we scry 1 and we draw a card. But again, with ELIGETH in play, we're going to pay 1 blue mana and we're going to draw 2 cards, just like Chain to Memory. And I should take this moment right now to point out that if we are fortunate enough to have ELIGETH'S Crossroads Augur on the battlefield, and we cast Sakashima as well, if Sakashima enters the battlefield and becomes a copy of ELIGETH, then we're going to double all of our scry into draw spells. Drawing the cards is going to be one of the featured win conditions of this deck. More on that later in this series. Next scry spell, we have Preordain. 1 blue mana at sorcery speed, scry 2, then draw a card. But again, with ELIGETH, it's draw 3 for 1 blue mana. Spell 5, sorcery speed again, it is Serum Visions. 1 blue mana, draw a card, scry 2. ELIGETH says, no. 1 blue mana, draw 3. Spell 6, moving up to a mana value of 2, we are going to include a copy of Deliberate. It is 1 and 1 blue mana at instant speed. We scry 2, and then we draw a card. Again, we're going to draw 3 cards with ELIGETH in play and cast that spell at instant speed. Spell number 7, our first non-blue spell of this deck building series, and that's going to be Maze Mind Tome, an artifact for 2 mana. We can tap Maze Mind Tome to put a page counter on it and scry 1. However, if you've noticed the trend so far, Eligeth is going to say tap Maze Mind Tome and draw a card. We can pay 2 mana and tap Maze Mind Tome to put a page counter on this and then draw a card. When there are 4 or more page counters on this, we exile it, and if we do, we gain 4 life. So even if we do have Eligeth on the battlefield with Maze Mind Tome, the clock is ticking based upon how many times we can activate this ability. Once we get to 4 or more page counters, we have to bid farewell to Maze Mind Tome. However, for the investment of 2 mana, we are going to end up drawing 4 cards. That's not bad over the course of the game. All right, spell number 8 as we near the halfway point of this introductory video. We have Omen of the Sea, an enchantment with flash for 1 and 1 blue mana. When it ETBs, we scry 2, and then we draw a card. For the purposes of this deck tech, however, Eligeth will say, when this ETBs, draw 3 cards. We can also pay 2 and a blue mana to sacrifice this enchantment to scry 2, or as Eligeth likes to say, draw 2 cards. You'll notice a trend as we continue with this first installment of this series that the mana investment to the cards drawn has to have an inverse proportion. What we're looking for is we want to invest the least amount of mana into the most amount of cards that we can draw. That's how I went about selecting the Scry package, and that's how it's going to be for the rest of this episode. Another mana value of 2, we have sorcery speed, Scour All Possibilities. We scry 2 and then draw a card. We have flashback on this, so we can cast this from our graveyard for 4 and a blue mana, and if we do, we then exile it. And again, of course, with Eligeth in play, we're going to draw 3 cards instead of just the 1. Next card, our first mana value of 3 and our first Planeswalker of this deck tech. We have Jace Mirror Mage, 1 and 2 blue, and it has a kicker of 2. When Jace ETBs, if it was kicked, we create a token that's a copy of Jace Mirror Mage, except it's not legendary, and it has a starting loyalty of 1. Our original Jace has a starting loyalty of 4. We +1 either one of these Jaces to scry 2. Again, with Eligeth in play, we're +ing 1 to draw 2 cards. So if we're fortunate enough to have the kicker available to cast Jace in the presence of Eligeth on the battlefield, we're going to have 2 copies of Jace, and each one that we can put a loyalty counter on will result in drawing 2 cards. And if things are really, really working out for us and the stars have aligned, we'll also have Sakashima in play, and perhaps Sakashima is a copy of Eligeth, and we +1 a Jace to draw 4 cards. And lastly, Jace's other ability is a 0 ability, which allows us to draw a card and reveal it, and then we remove a number of loyalty counters to that card's converted mana cost from Jace Mirror Mage. I can't imagine us ever using the 0 ability. Jace was selected in this deck for the purposes of its synergy with Eligeth Crossroads Augur. All right, next up, and another enchantment for us to talk about, enchantment number 2. This is Mystic Redaction, 2 and a blue. At the beginning of our upkeep, we scry 1. Of course, Eligeth says, draw that card instead. Whenever we discard a card, each opponent mills 2 cards. That ability is not really going to come into play very much in this build. As you'll see later on in the series, we are going to include numerous ways to keep cards in excess of 7 in our hand and not getting discarded into our graveyard. Back-to-back enchantments reign supreme here with another mana value of 3. We have Retreat to Coral Helm, 2 and a blue. It has the landfall mechanic. Whenever a land ETBs under our control, we choose 1. We tap or untap target creature, unlikely for us to do that, or we scry 1, which, let's be honest, with Eligeth in play means draw a card. Moving up to a mana value of 4, this first spell is one in which that we can pay in installments. What does that mean? Well, that's what Behold the Multiverse allows us to do. We can cast this for 3 and a blue mana at instant speed, or we can pay its Foretell cost of 1 and a blue. And if we do that, we exile this card, and during anytime after this current turn, we can pay. I'm sorry, I'm saying this backwards. Let me back up here for a second. I'm saying this backwards. The foretell cost to cast the spell is 1 and a blue. If we so choose to put this card into exile by foretelling it, we pay 2 colorless mana and then exile it face down. We can cast it later on in the game for 1 and a blue mana, and that's what we're going to do. We're most likely going to pay this in installments so that we don't have to inflate the amount of mana we're using just for the purposes of drawing only 3 cards. Yes, as I said earlier, we were looking for a greater inverse ratio of mana spent versus cards drawn. However, 2 and then another 2, it's really 2 for 3. Can we maybe have a little bit of pushback on that? I think so, yes. So Behold the Multiverse is most likely going to be a 2 for 3 at the time that we cast it for its foretell. Alright, so getting into some of the beefier scry/draw spells that are going to be included in this deck, moving and staying at 4 CMC after Behold the Multiverse, we have 4C, Sorcery Speed, 3 and a blue, scry 4, then draw 2 cards. ELIGETH'S says, no, pay the 3 and a blue mana at Sorcery Speed, and then draw 6 cards. 4C was such a great card, so let's talk about another card that, let's be honest, is 4C 2.0, and that's Tamiyo's Epiphany. Every single thing we said about 4C applies to 4C 2.0. Nearing the end of this first installment of our Build a Deck series, we only have a few spells left in our initial Scry package. We are going to now talk about another enchantment called Netherese Puzzle Ward, 3 and a blue. It has Focus Beam, which means at the beginning of our upkeep, we roll a d4. We scry X, where X is the result. So, of course, ELIGETH will say, no. You're going to draw X, wherever X is the result of that d4 roll. And additionally, for Perfect Illumination, another ability on this enchantment, if we were to ever roll a die's highest natural result, we draw a card. So if we have Netherese Puzzle Ward on the battlefield, in addition to ELIGETH, and we're fortunate enough to hit that d4, we're going to draw 5 cards. That is pretty nice for the investment of an ability that stays on the battlefield for 4 total mana. All right, jutting up to a CMC of 5, and our third last spell of this installment, it is Graven Lore, Snow Instant Speed, 3 and 2 blue. We scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast the spell. Then we draw 3 cards. Spoiler alert, as we move further and further into this deck building series, you're going to see that we will have a very, very large number of snow-covered islands included in this deck. So, if we think ahead that we're going to tap 5 of those snow-covered islands to cast Graven Lore, and we have ELIGETH on the battlefield, we're investing 5 blue mana to draw 8 cards, all at instant speed. All right, 2 spells left, and this is another 5 CMC, but we're moving from Snow Instant to regular sorcery, and that is Eugen's Insight, 3 and double blue. We scry X, where X is the highest converted mana cost among permanents we control. Then we draw 3 cards. So this one is a little bit of a wild card because we never know exactly what we're going to have out on the battlefield with us. It is safe to assume that we would not cast this spell unless we had ELIGETH in play. And if we think that ELIGETH is going to be one of, if not the permanent, with the highest mana value of all cards in our deck, then what we're going to do is invest 5 blue mana to draw 8 cards. And this is it, MTG BC, the last spell of this portion of the deck tech. It is the last scry spell we're going to talk about for today, and it is Diviner's Portent. At instant speed, it's X and triple blue. We roll a d20 and add the number of cards in our hand. If the number results in between 1 and 14, we draw X cards. If the number results in 15 plus, we scry X and then draw X cards. As I mentioned earlier during this portion of the deck tech, we are going to have numerous ways to keep cards in excess of 7 in our hands and not discarded to our graveyard. So we can certainly assume that we're going to get 15 plus when we cast Diviner's Portent, and we're most likely going to cast this spell in the presence of ELIGETH'S Crossroads Augur. Then we're going to draw a lot of cards. There you have it, MTG BC, episode 1. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.